Just you're on mute.
Let's try that again. I was on mute the entire time. I swear I said all of 2021 and 2020. I'm writing a book called You're on Mute. And there you have why. So anyway, let me try that again. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thursday. And welcome to another episode of Self-Storage Unlocked, powered by the Storage Business Owners Alliance, better known as the SBOA. I'm your normal host, Jessica Johnson. I'm the VP of the SBOA. But I'm super excited about today because I am joined by our co-founder and president of the SBOA, Mr. Ian Burnstein himself. So I'm going to bring Ian up. Hey, Ian.
What's going on? Good to be here.
It's my face red. Yeah, I'm so glad Alec jumped in and told me I was.
It's only been 2 years, so if you haven't figured out how to unmute yet, you're don't worry, you got another 2 years to figure it out.
Goodness, what a rookie move, right? What a rookie move. But anyway, Ian, thanks for coming on today and being my guest host. If you could just give the audience a rundown of who you are, how long you've been in the industry, and kind of what made you come to creating the SBOA, I would love to hear it.
Great. Well, I work for Jessica, and I've been in the storage business since 2000, and it's been a great business for me. Got into it like most people by accident. Was in a great partnership for 6 years, and then we sold, had a good exit, and I went on my own. Been in a partnership with my current partner, David Levenfeld, now since 2006. Had a nice start to the business together, and then obviously the recession hit. As anybody, the guys who will be joining on this call will remember those days with not a lot of fondness. At that point, there was just a lot of trouble in the economy as a whole. And we kind of made the decision at that point. It was very difficult to raise revenues at that point. So the best way to save your business and to operate better was to lower your expenses. And so we figured the best way to do that was we banded together with some other operators. We had 10 properties at the time. This was back in 2008. And we started going to vendors and said, we'll all come and use you if you give us some preferred pricing and you work with us, and we'll double the amount of business you're getting. And people really responded well to that, both sides, the other vendors and the vendors and the other operators. And so we decided, I said to David at that time, I think I'm onto something. And we invested some money on a booth in a trade show and went to our first trade show at Colorado Springs, where, as everybody knows, there's usually a couple thousand people at these shows. There was 123 people at the show, including vendors. And I was in Colorado Springs, and we invited 80 of them to dinner. And somehow we convinced, on the first day, over 1,500 locations to join the SBOA. So since then, we've grown it significantly. We usually have about 30 vendors. We started an insurance program that really changed what operators can bring home in insurance. We started a credit card processing business, which allowed people, I think we really paved the way for people to save a lot in their processing. And since then, we've come up with different ways for people to help improve revenue and reduce expenses and just improve the bottom line.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that overview. And again, like I said, I'm excited about today. You've got an all-star lineup on this panel, some of the best in the industry. So I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce your panelists today. And then I'm going to jump back on and when you're finished, and we're going to go over some housekeeping items.
Great. Okay. So first we have Brian Cohen. Brian, fine man, originally from New York City, now down in Miami, Storage King, Andover Properties. Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So, President and CEO of Andover Properties. We operate under Storage King USA. We've, over the years have had 240 properties. Currently, we have 120 self-storage facilities, roughly 9 million square feet. And we're also, looking to have another banner year, and so far we have 16 properties under contract, and been in the business since 2003, and also, like Ian, kind of got in by happenstance.
Yep, that's the way it happens to most of us. Next we have Robert CHITI. Robert, hailing from Phoenix, Arizona. We decided been in the industry the second longest of the four of us. Yeah, look at this, look at that. Yeah, I can show you outside here. I think it hit 11 degrees here in Detroit today. A little balmy. I had to take a jacket off. So, Robert, tell us about yourself.
I'm a Pisces, Ian, and I like hiking, jogging, fishing, and I recently was married. So finally off the market. I work for OpenTech Alliance. We're in Phoenix, Arizona. We've been helping self-storage operators improve their revenues, reduce their costs, and actually help with the customer experience for about 19 years now. Our main product lines are a self-service kiosk, the Insomniac. We run the largest call center in the industry. That's not a private one. We have the largest online auction site called Storage Treasures. And we also have the newest technology, Internet of Everything platform for access control and remote management of properties. We've launched that in 2018.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for being here. And certainly last but not least at all, Ben Vestal, hailing from Denver, Colorado. Just had to pull him off the slopes. Ben, good to have you with Argus. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Ian. Thanks for having me. I'm the president and CEO of Argus Self-Storage Advisors. We are a service provider to the industry. We provide investment sales services and third-party management. Argus has been around for 28 years. I do remember the recession when we were down in Colorado Springs, Ian. This year we transacted over 200 assets, and I think in 2008 we transacted 12. So I understand, it's come a long way, and I've done business with all the panelists here, and we do have very lucky to have everybody on the panel today. It's a remarkable business. I got in the business because I actually wanted to get out of the third-party management business. I was an office building asset manager before my self-storage career, and rolled the world forward 17 years, and I've got a third-party management business that manages 185 self-storage facilities, and we have 26 brokerage offices, and I'm very happy and very thankful to be in the storage space. It's been a good run, and I like the people a lot, and it's a great business model.
No, that's great. So just to clarify, 200 is better than 12, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Okay. So now we can get started. So Jessica, anything else you want to add before we dive in?
Yeah, just going to go over a few quick housekeeping items for everyone that's live with us here today. Since we are live, we do encourage you to ask your questions through the chat function over on the right-hand side of your screen. Please ask questions. We've got a great panel for you. They've been around for a long time. These guys know the business really well. Lean in on them and get your answers of anything that you want to ask about self-storage and what's going on in the industry. There's also a poll tab on the right-hand side as well. We have a couple polls in there that we would like to ask you and have you answer for us. We ask the polls because we want to get to know you better, so how we can better serve you from an industry perspective, resource perspective, networking perspective, whatever that may be. And we can't put on these type of events without our special sponsors. So our sponsors for today are OpenTech Alliance and Janus International. And if you stay tuned for one quick second, we have a word from our sponsors.
Did you know there is a way to serve your tenants whether you're on-site or not? Do you need a way to provide contactless storage rentals, but worry self-service transactions are impersonal or your customers will get frustrated and walk away? OpenTech's Insomniac kiosks with live help provide a full-service customer experience so you and your customers can rent easy. Connecting face-to-face is as simple as a single touch. Your customers can speak to a real person and get help at any point in the rental process. If they need help getting started, have questions about your facility, or aren't quite sure what they're looking for, your virtual manager will feel like a seamless member of your frontline team. Industry sales and service experts, they'll uncover your tenant's needs to easily identify and recommend the most relevant storage space or payment option, helping you provide a pain-free process to ensure every customer experience is a great one. With live help, your virtual manager can provide a personal touch, take control of the screen and help navigate step-by-step through the rental process, and directly input tenant information, all from a comfortable distance. Today's storage customers have more competing demands for their business than ever before. To help make it convenient to rent or pay at your facility anytime, Live Help allows your tenants to access industry experts whenever they need them. Serve your customers when, how, and where they want, and create a personalized experience no matter how many or how few staff you have on site. Meet your new virtual manager, an Insomniac kiosk with live help. Now with video chat. Rent more, worry less. Contact us today to learn more.
If you're looking for a way to provide a more convenient and secure experience for your tenants, then it's time for you to consider Noki One Smart Locks. Noki One is the latest innovation in the award-winning line of Noki Smart Entry products from Janus. These all-in-one on-door smart locks are the industry's leading and fastest growing smart security product because of all the exciting new features. Like wayfinding tools so tenants can locate their unit from the mobile app. Thermal motion sensors and motion notifications. Smart camera and thermostat integrations. Gates and units that open automatically for tenants with the One Touch feature. And so much more. Plus, more than 500,000 tenant users worldwide have made the Noki Smart Entry mobile app the highest rated app in self-storage. These groundbreaking smart locks take mere minutes to retrofit. And for new construction projects or door replacements, Noki One can even ship on the Janus door, saving you time and money on installation. So, if you're looking for the highest rated, most installed, most downloaded, most innovative, and most secure solution for your facility, then it's time to consider Noki One from Janus.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, OpenTech, and thank you, Janus. Two more quick things, and then I promise I'm going to let you take over, Ian. There's a people tab here on the sidebar on the right as well. There's 66 people in here live with us. If they have a green button underneath their name, that means they're live. No green button means they registered to attend, but they weren't able to make it here live with us. You can network with one another. You can schedule meetings with one another, get to know one another. We highly encourage that you do that. So we're going to start with a fun icebreaker. I would like to ask the audience, and we can bring up the panelists, Alec, because we can get started. I want the audience to guess how many years of combined self-storage industry experience you think our panelists, including Ian, the moderator today, and our guest hosts have. Whoever answers that in the chat area closest will get a $10 Amazon gift card from us. That will be an instant download. So we'll announce the winner at the end. We also have another special announcement at the end. Goodbye for now. Ian, take it over. Good luck. Have fun.
Thanks. All right. You finally get to business here, guys. So sorry that took so long. So really appreciate all you guys being here. I've known all you guys for a long time. Really want to start with kind of where we're at, and we're going to focus on 2022 and what you guys are seeing. So really this obviously goes more to Brian and Ben. What are you guys seeing? Where's the market heading in 22? I know Brian, you just mentioned you're already under contract on 16 more for 22, but are you guys as bullish on 22 as 21? And Brian, why don't you start us off and kind of talk about maybe is it going to stay hot? What are you projecting for interest rates? Give us a little insight where your head's at.
Okay. I think 2022, for different reasons than 2021, things are going to be just as hot. Maybe you're not going to see the same, maybe not the same volume and dollar amount as 2021, but you're going to see a very close second. I mean, you have right now just billions of dollars sitting on the sidelines trying to get into the space. And, between individuals and private companies with this much cash, the one thing sitting in an inflationary environment that we're in today, the one thing that is not king is cash. And people are, desperate to invest in assets that have yield. And so last year, there was more, the desperation to sell was more from a tax standpoint. Everyone was afraid, they were afraid that capital gains was going to go up and they needed to sell before year end. Now, everyone's going to be a seller because cap rates have compressed further, and they're just going to see that they can, instead of sitting, like they're seeing like, wow, this is the best dollars. We never thought we could get this on a sale, and they want to sell now. And so I think you're going to see just a tremendous amount of volume this year as well. And as I said, like last year we did about $500 million of acquisitions, but we're already, we're not even 3 weeks in, and we've got 160 million tied up already. So we think this is going to be another big year. I think in terms of interest rates are going to creep up. The big lenders are tightening spreads. So I think for big institutions, it's not going to have as big institutions that are buying, it's not going to have as big of an effect.
Yeah.
And that's what we're hearing. The smaller borrowers may get burned a little bit with interest rates ticking up.
How about you, Ben?
I'll echo mainly a lot of the same things Brian said. I think, we will continue to see, historically high valuations paid for self-storage. And I think that's largely due to the improving market fundamentals around the country. We're seeing rental rates and occupancies, near historically high levels in all the markets we're operating. There is just really an unmeasurable amount of equity looking to be placed in the space. And, I think, as we go into the year, I think, 3 weeks in, as Brian said, we're as busy as we were last year, if not busier today. And I think from the transaction velocity and volume standpoint, I do think we'll be off a little bit from 2021, but that 2021 numbers were really skewed by some very, very large transactions, kind of multi-generational transactions, such as Manhattan Mini, Storage Easy. So I think we're going to see a lot of the 1 and 2 property portfolios being sold at really record high prices. And so I think that's going to continue. I also think we'll see several $100 to $300 million transactions transact this year. So, if you took the very large, call it multi-billion-dollar transactions that took place last year, I think we're going to be on par with last year with regards to transaction velocity. With regards to interest rates, there is interest rate concern. Whenever there is interest rate movement, it does have an impact on the investment market and valuation. However, I do think the borrowers today and a lot of the most active buyers are very well capitalized, and therefore that they're not as dependent on the debt markets as maybe they were the last cycle. And as Brian mentioned, we're seeing the large institutions, tighten up, the spreads to keep, the all-in borrowing rate relatively the same, even if we see an uptick in the treasury, maybe 20, 30 basis points. So I really don't think rising interest rates is going to be much of a concern this year, at least for the large buyers. Some of the smaller buyers, as Brian said, could face some headwinds if they're using local or regional banks. But I think a lot of those are relationship driven. And what my experience is if you have a good relationship, lots of deposits, the bank will figure out a way to make the loan competitive for you. But overall, I think 2022 is going to be another record year for the industry. I think we're going to see very, very strong performance across the board. One thing I will mention is we are starting to see seasonality creep back into the business. We're seeing move-outs increase across the board. That's really been muted the last 2 years because of COVID. But heading into rental season, we will be at as a high, our managed portfolio will be as highly occupied as it's ever been, creating more and more pricing power for us. So I do think the performance of the asset will just continue to be very strong for the next several quarters.
Yeah, that makes sense. So obviously, starting with technology, as Robert, you can speak a lot to this. Technology has actually been coming much more into the space, constantly. COVID obviously has expedited a lot of things, right? So it seems like people are really starting to, you're paying a lot of money for a lot of these properties. You got to be able to compete. So people are trying to find ways to be more efficient. Maybe just give us an overview, and then I got some follow-up specific questions. But what are you seeing now? What have been the real significant changes? What do you see coming in the very near future as far as people utilizing technology, and to what extent, and where are you projecting, and what do you see coming out?
Yeah, well, for us, I've been evangelizing remote management using automation and technology for a lot of years. So it's one of those deals where it's like a overnight success never happens overnight. Um, I think the COVID and pandemic issues have driven operators to realize that they can run their businesses different than they have. They can use a different operating model. There's a guy named Jefferson Shreve that's been running about 100 properties plus without a manager for since he started the business. So been over probably 20 years. And so a lot of people didn't quite grasp that concept and that it could be done. And the pandemic forced them into it. So, when managers won't come to the office because they're concerned about their health or couldn't come because they were sick, whatever, self-storage operators had to find ways to run their business with a different model. And I think one of the first things they realized quickly, at least the ones that, a lot of the people have been renting units online since, 2011, specifically even Jefferson Shreve's Storage Express property has been doing that with us. And so what they found quickly was that people will rent a unit without being there. They don't need to get on the cart. They don't need to do the unit look through. A lot of things that I think the industry thought was the standard customer journey has changed. And it had changed a long time ago, but they just finally realized it in masses. And so renting a unit online has been something that I think certainly woken up a lot of self-storage operators to a new model of operating their business. So that means they certainly will rent into kiosks, they'll rent over the phone, and they'll continue to be able to do business with you without having to do it face-to-face. And of course, that's what the pandemic's forced. So we see more of the same. I don't think that it's going to go back. A lot of times people were looking at automation tools for expense reduction in the past. And today, I think it's really more, while it's still going to be an expense reduction because, of course, labor costs are going up significantly, as well as benefits. The bigger issue is it's just the supply. You can't get people to take those roles. So I think I don't think that's going to change when you're getting $18, $19 at McDonald's and all the benefits. You're going to have to offer a lot more to work in a storage facility. And so I think there's still going to be that shortage of labor. And I think that as operators learn that there's a new operating model they can use by leveraging automation to run their properties in more of a remote fashion, I think it's going to continue because it's just going to be smart business for them.
So tell me a little bit about Remote Manager.
We offer a service called Remote Manager. Basically, we've run a call center for a number of years. And of course, we service customers with the face-to-face interaction service like you saw in the commercial through our self-service kiosks. And so we've learned how to help our customers perform the business transactions they want to do. And when operators started having to have their managers work from home and not go to the property and started realizing that they could take phone calls and do a lot of the things they need remotely, they thought that was great. But then the manager didn't want the job anymore and wanted to do something else or whatever. So they get labor shortage. So they've turned to us and said, would you help us manage our properties, having somebody there all along, because we have a pretty big staff of people in our call centers. So if one person gets sick, we've got 3 more to help out. We can do it for extended periods of time where, we can do it from 6 a.m. in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. And that way, one person couldn't do that for a self-storage facility. So they turned to us by having a centralized call center to be their remote manager. And that remote manager service can do collections. It does follow up on leads. It handles kind of some of the service calls that you need to be empowered to make decisions with. So we're basically trying to help self-storage operators have a resource to go to if they want a remote manager and not have to have that person on their payroll or someone that can back up a manager they have.
Great. So Ben, what are you guys doing at your managed properties to, in recent years, or what do you see going forward where you're going to really implement additional technology? I know you use some of Robert's tools.
Yeah, we are one of Robert's customers, and Remote Manager has been a great tool for us. They've really taken the lead, and we've actually provided them our employee handbook, our policies and procedures. So, when their call center people are working as a remote manager for us, they're really acting and implementing our policies and procedures, which has allowed us to grow exponentially from a number of different reasons. the hub and spoke model that a lot of people are talking about today, where you have a large property and then you have 4 or 5, smaller properties or unmanned properties. We've been able to do, execute on that using Robert's remote manager. We're also using pay by text, which has been hugely beneficial during the pandemic. And to kind of just talk a little bit about where the market is today, I think the pandemic accelerated everybody's willingness to use technology. Even my 80-year-old father today is willing to use technology because he was forced during the pandemic. So I think that that's really accelerated, the use of technology across our customer base. Not to mention, I do think that there is a demographic shift in our customers. We're seeing more and more millennials rent from us, and they're so used to using technology that it's really seamless, and they're almost expecting it. I know Public Storage comes out and post stats that half of their rentals each month are coming on their online app, and I can tell you about not quite half, but just under half are using some sort of remote leasing capability at all of our stores. And I think that's driven occupancy higher. I think it's allowed us to collect, quite frankly, more data, because sometimes I think people are willing to implement more data into the lease electronically than they are to actually tell a human being, because they can do it on their time. They can do it when they're at their house or at their kitchen table. So we've used a lot of technology, but mainly the pay by text and the remote manager, have allowed us to really grow our management platform and also reduce, Robert mentioned, the lack of employees and the rising payroll costs. That is true, but we're actually reducing office hours at a lot of our sites. We're tracking, when a lot of our high rental periods or high payment periods are, and staffing during those times. But, we're testing, taking a couple hours off each day, or being closed on Tuesday, or being closed at the middle of the month opposed to the beginning on certain days. And we've been able to actually attract higher caliber employees and pay them more if they're able to cover more than one site. So, we're testing all that stuff, and it's really added to the bottom line of our customers, or to our clients' bottom line. And Robert's programs are cutting edge and have been very successful in our managed platform.
Yeah.
We
Go ahead.
say that we kind of turned to give a term so you can talk about some of that new operating model. We call it demand-based staffing. And what customers like Ben of ours are doing is we're seeing them look at what's going on from our access control system, because they've got so much more data now. They can learn about their tenants and their tenant behaviors, as well as our Internet of Everything platform allows you to track door opens and closes, those kind of things. People that come to the front door and can't get in because you're not there, we can track that and alert someone. We just got so much more data that an operator like Ben can use to determine when they want to staff the property. Yeah. And so that's why we kind of call it demand-based staffing, kind of getting away from this whole unmanned concept and term, because it's really never unmanned. You're always going to need somebody to manage the property. It's just a matter of when do you need somebody there to be part of the retail store and in the traditional fashion. I think Ben's done a great job of using the data to their advantage.
Yeah, and that's led to a lot more value creation for our clients. We've been able to sell properties for meaningfully higher values because we've been able to control expenses. And, I think it's easy for an industry like self-storage that has been so profitable over the years to let expenses kind of get out of control in some fashion. And I think, if you can manage your expenses, every dollar that goes to the bottom line today is worth, 20 or 25 times. So it's meaningful if you can save $1,000 a month these days.
And I guess the good news is we haven't been raising our rates, even though we know that you're getting higher value. Right,
I'll talk to Brian about that. He's the guy that always
Brian won't let us.
Expenses.
Well, Brian, while they're picking on you, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing as far as technology, what you see are the key components and towards the future, anything you recommend or things that you think are important to help make your properties more profitable and run better.
Well, so same as Ben, we also use a lot of Robert's services. The only one we're not using, which we've just signed up for as a test on several locations, is Remote Manager. So we're excited to actually try that out, because we've already, started cutting, we've, more been forced to start cutting staff, but it came at a fortunate time, because we pre-COVID, we had rent online already set up. We just weren't utilizing it yet. And once COVID hit, it was like the perfect time to start utilizing it. So it's interesting to see that now, less than 2 years, when we had 0 customers renting online, moving in online, not ever going to the office, they were going to the office. Now they're not going. We have 41% of our customers that fully rent online.
It's amazing.
So not even touching the office. And, some of that, we have some inner city facilities that you really couldn't do a full rent online scenario, but it's been working, and that's 41% across our whole portfolio, and that's only continuing to grow. And the other areas, from a technology standpoint, is the way we've been able to not only extract data from Robert's CIA systems, but also from just the data that we extract from both StoreTrack and Yardi. We do a tremendous amount. We have our own data engineers and data scientists on board, where we've been able to extract all that data and help us better in terms of underwriting and revenue management. So we've been able to really ingest and digest all of that data, and really helps us perform much better from managing both effective rent increases and street rents.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, Robert, you've been laying the groundwork for a long time. Now it all seems you got married. Technology is being utilized more. I mean, what could be better for a guy like you, right?
Somehow I got gray hair.
So we actually, a question came in, kind of as where we're heading, talking about the year. So one of the people out there wants to know, when do you guys think construction will start affecting existing facilities?
You want me to take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So look, we're also out there developing. We're seeing, every time I turn for a piece of land that we're looking for, and we actually are starting negotiating a contract to buy that piece of land. And we've monitored all the data that's out there. And then it's amazing, as we get ready to sign that contract, we're like, oh my God, there's a new site in permitting down the road that wasn't showing up before. So I do think it's coming, but I think there's a good 2 years, probably 2024, until we start seeing, because some people started, 12 months ago, but it's taking longer to get entitlements.
Yeah.
The like everything, the municipalities are short-staffed. So to look over building plans and get permits, it's all taking longer. So
good luck with construction. I mean, if you can get supplies and labor, good luck. And then the expenses, I think, will be also probably a natural inhibitor as well. I think people will start killing deals because of the costs.
I think, though, who knows? By the time they get entitlements, though, the supply chain issue could potentially be figured out 12 to 24 months from now. That's the big question mark.
Ben, you agree with Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I want to make one statement, is the fact that, if you're a single asset operator or even a 2 asset operator and somebody builds within your 3-mile trade area, it's going to feel like you're going to feel the effects of it. Supply is definitely the Achilles heel of self-storage. However, just speaking, broad-based across the entire industry, I do think it's an 18 to 24 month window where we're going to see very little new supply. I think, Chris Sani spoke last week, and I had dinner with him, and he believes about 425 facilities were delivered in 21. I think about the same amount is going to be delivered this year, maybe a few more, but. I'll be totally candid. We sold more development sites last year than we've ever sold in our 28-year history. The developers are loading the pipeline.
Yeah.
Whenever we're selling properties for $200, $300, $400 a square foot, major MSAs, and $100 to $200 a foot in secondary and tertiary markets, it doesn't take long for the developers to do the math and figure out there's meaningful money to be made. But I do think it is taking longer. Like Brian said, the municipalities are understaffed. A lot of them are still working remotely. We used to say entitlements take, 6 to 12 months. Today it's 12 to 18 months, and development's easily 12 to 18 months. So from the time you find a piece of property today get it entitled, build it. It's a 3 to 4 year proposition, maybe even longer. I know, Ian, you worked on a site that was 5 years. So, the market can look a lot different 3 to 5 years from now. So I do think the development wave is coming. The other thing I would also say is I think the developers today are much more disciplined and the lenders are much more disciplined. There's better information in the market than there's ever been. So I do believe that we're developing smarter, but it's coming. I think by the end of 24, we'll start to see meaningful new supply in most major markets.
Yeah. And what do you think going into another question from the group here? Will rental rates, do you think they'll be in occupancies be higher going into the renting season this year than they were last year?
Oh, than they were last year. Rental rates will certainly be higher. Our rental rates are 12 to 14% higher depending on market. Some are as high as 20% higher. Occupancy rates are at all-time highs. I did mention we are seeing some seasonality come back. But to be totally candid, a lot of that seasonality might be driven by our revenue management program, and what we're trying to, understand that better. We're pushing rates as very, very aggressive levels onto our existing customer base, and creating occupancy, because going into the rental season, we want to have some product to rent, and the pricing power is all on the owner side right now. With very little new supply coming on, I think that there's a lot of demand for the product. So, I think rental rates are up 12 to 14% across the board in our portfolio, and I think we're heading into rental season in the best position in my 17 years we've ever been.
Yeah.
So I'll just add into Ben's comment. I also, I agree with him. We're actually over the past 12 months, our in-place rental rates are up 19%. And we've started feeling some seasonality, but even with that seasonality over the past 12 months, and these are our same store figures, our occupancy is up 280 basis points. So even with the seasonality, which we have seen a big drop off, but we're still up, overall. So it's definitely, I think, occupancy and rates are going to continue to push.
Yeah, I expect peak occupancy to be, this rental season, to be honest with you. I think we'll see north of 95% across the board.
Yep, I agree. So Robert, there's a question here. Is it easy enough to install a kiosk when you already have an existing property, or is it better for a development site?
Oh, no, it works both the same. When it's a brand new property, training your tenants as they come on board to your property it makes it much easier. Their expectation of someone not sitting at the counter all the time, and a lot of times they wouldn't know the difference. So if they're new to self-storage, but most of our customers already have had properties in place. And the real issue, though, is it's not just about installing a kiosk. It's really thinking about a new operating model. We have installed kiosks that customers didn't feel like they were successful because they had a manager there for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they didn't change the model one bit. And so they said, wow, I don't get a lot of usage. When someone does use it, it works after hours and those kind of things. But the technology is just that. It's just technology. You really have to be looking at a new operating model as how you run your business and how you service your customers. And if you do that as in a bigger scope, we see a lot of success.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. We use the call center very early on. I can't foresee an example. A smaller site, a manager may not even talk to more than 5 people in a day, right? People pay by mail or by credit card, especially the further you got along, and we were very centralized in our operations. So, to not have, all our bills were paid, at the home office, all marketing decisions were made there, all the checks were cut from there. So, to miss a phone call, the line I would tell my staff constantly was, all right, if you're a baseball player and you hit 2 times, you get a hit 2 times out of 10, you never make the majors. You get a hit 3 times out of 10, you're in the Hall of Fame, right? That's how slight the difference is. So, to miss opportunities like that because you think you're going to save money in technology. Think what an extra rental, every week, 1 more rental a week, at 52 more tenants times an average of, I don't even know what the average rate would now use, $150, $200, and, times 12 at a, 5 or 4 cap rate, whatever it is now. You're talking huge dollars.
Yeah. John Lofton always used to baseball. He used a baseball analogy. He says being a self-storage manager is like a baseball game. You're packing 15 minutes of excitement in 8 hours.
I like that.
And so I think, unfortunately, self-storage managers have been given this task of 100 things to do, and one of those isn't sit by the phone and wait for it to ring. It's do all these other things because you're there and you have spare time and blah, blah, blah. Why couldn't you pick up the trash in the yard? And blah, so pretty soon we've got them doing all these things where the primary thing is to service a calling customer that wants to rent a unit.
Right.
And missing that today, we used to offer a voicemail service. We still take voicemails and pass them off to customers when someone leaves them. But most of the time, all you hear is click. Yeah. People don't even leave a voicemail anymore.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So when they call, they've made a conscious decision to choose that channel of communication with you. And there's a reason why they're calling. Either they don't think they can figure it out online or whatever it is, but that's the channel they chose to do business with you. You need to be there. It's almost like them doing a search on the internet and your webpage not be there today. It's like, right. What? I chose to go to the internet and you're not there. So you have to, the platinum rule. You have to serve those customers the way they want to be served, and you have to think of all those channels they want to. And people still use the phone an awful lot. Especially when you think about what Google did, and when you're searching on your mobile phone, I mean, hit that call button is a lot simpler sometimes than click into the website and go through all those things. So I think we processed 1.8 million calls.
Amazing.
So it's not. I always thought that we put our prices on a fixed price, thinking that the number of calls would drop because people would use the website to make payments and never call us. And we'd be keeping all of Brian's money doing nothing for him because we wouldn't have any calls. But it turned out that people are still calling as much as they always did, if not more.
Right.
Yeah. The two things we get excited about on an acquisition, the number one thing is when they have no website. So they have no website, which you still find some of those.
Oh yeah.
So we get really excited by that. And then the second thing is when they have no call center. And I always am still amazed where some sellers, they still have answering machines, and that is, that always, gets us very excited. We see tremendous potential when they don't have a call center in place.
No question.
Interesting prospecting model for buying new properties is to call across the country and see who doesn't answer their phone.
Right.
I think you'd be surprised at how many people don't answer their phones.
Yes. Well, you would not be surprised, actually. So here's another question. So what are the top 3 priorities for owners who are looking to sell their properties as far as what they can do to increase the price with a good ROI?
You want me to answer that?
Sure.
I think, for owners that are thinking about selling, there's a couple things that they need to do. They obviously need to clean up all their deferred maintenance and clean up their financials, make sure that they, guys like Brian want to see everything. They don't want to just see, your management summary report. You got to have very detailed and simplify your financials, but raise your rents. I can't tell you how many folks are complacent about raising rents, even at all-time high occupancies. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's just it's low-hanging fruit. I can tell you, raise your rents. Implement tenant insurance program, use Ian's program at SBOA. It's a great program for 1 and 2 property owners. If a property has less than 50% tenant insurance penetration, there's opportunity there. But the number one thing is raise your rents. Look at your operating expenses. Review your operating expenses. We do it quarterly, just because the small upticks in the trash removal charges, the elevator service charge, whatever it is, can add up, and really be mindful of your operating expenses. But the number one thing is raise your rents across the board. I can't stress that enough.
I may have a slightly different take than Ben. The one thing I'll say is, like, the way we look at deals, and especially if it's in a competitive environment, but the way we look at deals is we'll price your facility. We'll take a look at where the rents are today. And so we'll mark, we won't mark, it may take us a little bit longer, so it's a little dilutive on your sale price, but we'll mark the rents to where we feel the market is. So, and same with we know what our expenses are. So we do want to see detailed expenses, see if there are any outliers or any, as Ben said before, any deferred maintenance that's creeping up, so we could see a pattern. But for the most part, we know our expense structure, except for some of the, R&M items, but we're typically, we have our own expense structure ready to go. And we know what our penetration rate is on tenant insurance. So if a seller has that or not, we'll plug in exactly what we think we can do on both the rents and the tenant insurance.
Great. Robert, there's a question here. Concern about clients being your biggest hindrance when implementing technology.
You mean Brian?
Customers at the storage facility.
Oh, your clients. Okay.
Yes.
Storage tenants. Sorry.
I'm assuming that's what they're referencing in the question, but I think it's a safe assumption.
Okay.
So what do you do to help?
No, they're not.
Today it's got to be a lot different than it was even a few years ago. So.
Yeah, I mean, they're not the hindrance. I mean, the issue has been that the self-storage operators haven't, they have different cycles you guys have gone through. And when you went through the down cycle, you started spending more time looking at operations and thinking about new ways to do stuff. When you're in this up cycle and you're buying and building and running, you don't stop to go back and look at those things. But what's happened long before the operators have figured out is tenants and consumers have already moved to a lot of self-service. I mean, the internet is the largest self-service system in the world, right? I mean, people have been serving themselves and using automation. I mean, I don't know how many have kids that are probably 6 and 7, but they probably already have a mobile phone in some cases, right? So the tenants aren't the problem. You do have to provide them the channels to do the business they want to, because there are people that sell flip phones. We have a mobile app that allows you to get right into the property without even pulling it out of your pocket. You just pull up to the gate and it goes through for CIA, called Storage Genie. And guess what? Not everybody uses it. A lot of people, and so there's, it is certainly obviously changing to where it's shifting towards more and more technology. The mobile phone has done that. But the consumers have been there a long time, I think, when it comes to automation and technology. They see it at gas stations. They've seen it at banks. They see it at restaurants and fast food. I mean, it's everywhere, right? Your DMV now, you do stuff through a kiosk. So you can really, I mean, every hotel's got kiosks in them. So they're not the problem. It's really just getting people to understand it's not just the technology, it's the operating model. Because you just can't stick a piece of technology somewhere and expect everybody's just going to use it. You have to change your operating model, support it, promote it, those kind of things.
No, makes sense. We have another question here, wanting to know what the panel's thoughts are about RV and boat storage. And so I can actually, I've actually recently got pretty involved in that business, partnered with another large storage operator. We've bought now about 15 RV parks around the country, and the business is incredible. You can't get an RV right now. I mean, the largest RV operators are, have I'm drawing a blank of the name of the company out of Elkhart, Indiana, but they had the largest operator now has, $14 billion backlog. So I don't know, Ben or Brian, I mean, do you guys have any properties that are, I mean, I don't think you have any that are exclusive.
We do.
Yeah,
so before we got on the call, Robert was just commenting on the one in his backyard. It's
okay.
It's just a 16-acre pure covered RV storage. So we've been buying pure covered boat and RV storage facilities. We started to throughout the country and build. We build a lot of covered, open, and enclosed RV as well.
Are you doing solar on those, Brian, or no? Solar panels?
Only in right now in the states where it has been
advantageous.
Right, where it's been efficient.
And Ben, have you sold any of them or operated?
Oh yeah, we sold. We sold one in Orlando. I think it was one of the largest ones in recent times. 2,000 unit facility in Orlando last year. We're selling a lot of them. There's not quite as many. The cap rate spread between traditional self-storage and RV and boat is compressed. Like everything else, it's maybe 50 to 100 basis points higher today. So, they used to be 7, 8, 9 cap rates. Today they're their sixes type stuff, maybe 5.5 to 6.5. People like Brian have figured it out. They're a very good business. There's a tremendous demand for them right now. All the new housing, there's a housing shortage in America. All the new housing developments that are being developed today, have covenants that prohibit, homeowners from storing their vehicle, their recreational vehicles in their driveway, in their backyard, in their garage, etc. So, the demand is growing meaningfully. I would tell you, historically, we've seen them be a little bit less resilient during economic hardship times, such as the recession. We managed several of them during the recession. So I do think that they're not quite as reliable or as resilient as traditional self-storage, but overall they're very good investments. There's a lot of demand from. There is some institutional equity that's been organized over the last 12 to 18 months to buy these, and we've sold one group 7 or 8 of them. We've sold another group maybe 10. And it seems like every week I'm finding out about a new group that's programmatically raised equity to roll up and institutionalize the RV and boat model. So it's coming, guys, and it's a great product. It's it's a little bit different of an operational challenge. We manage probably 15 or 16 of them, but overall they're doing extremely well. The demand for the storage units today is as high as I've ever seen it. Maybe it's greater than self-storage. I mean, we filled a 90-unit RV lot in 30 days here in Colorado recently. I mean, it's aggressive and a great business model, and just another facet of the storage business that's starting to be more institutionalized as people understand it more.
The one thing I will say is it is harder. Lenders do give you a little bit of a harder time borrowing for. I mean, it depends if it's enclosed RV, it's a little different than if it's covered, and if it's open RV, the lenders are not very excited about that.
That's a great point, Brian. And Brian's a very good borrower and has access to a lot of equity and debt facilities that the traditional, smaller operator does not have. But it is difficult to finance RV and boat deals that you don't get the crazy aggressive terms, and the leverage points are usually quite a bit lower. Yeah,
no, we're finding the same with the RV parks because there's a lot of incidental revenue that's not tied just to the real estate. So
yeah,
no, we're finding the same. Okay, well, we're coming to the. What do you think about storage buildings and structural buildings? Will the storage buildings take a lead in future as compared to structural buildings? I'm not sure I understand the question, actually. Does that make sense to you guys?
Not really following the difference between normal buildings and structural buildings, but
maybe it's just just the freestanding buildings as opposed to converting buildings.
He might mean warehousing versus self-storage.
Yeah. Okay, well, I've got a good handle on the question. I'll come back to you guys.
If they give a follow-up, we can probably.
Yeah.
Okay, and then also another question just came in about your thoughts on portable storage units. They're going to become more mainstream and eventually be included in the valuation of the facility. I can actually talk
containers.
Yeah, so I actually. As we started really exiting, I mean, this is actually not the first time. We just sold our last property just over a month ago. It's the first time in 22 years I've been owned a storage facility. But we actually did a lot of them with a company called Flex Building System. They look great. I mean, you put them together, and they looks like a real building. Very affordable, very easy. They set up financing for you. The financing was about $120 a building, and we were bringing in $340 a building, and we specifically we did a bunch of them in Nashville, and I think we had I think we financed $80,000 worth of buildings, and it generated like $1.2 million more on sale. I mean, it was remarkable. Held them for about a year. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, Brian, as a buyer, or Ben, when you see him as a broker, but what do you see as far as valuation and
So there's some buyers that'll give you full credit for those buildings. Sometimes, though, if they're not permitted, I've seen buyers say, "Wait a second, this is not not CO'd. We don't know if this is actually allowed for zoning." So there are buyers that I've seen and heard that they will pull a deal if the portables were not permitted.
Right.
Yeah, Brian's spot on that. I mean, the permitted nature of these, that there's, we're in maybe one of the hottest investment markets in the self-storage space history. And so most of the time we can get people to swallow the portables or the containers, as even if they're permitted or not permitted. But you start to talk 20, 30% of the facility is unpermitted storage units or containers, it can be problematic, not only from the lender or the buyer pool. So it does reduce, it skinnies up your buyer pool to some extent. We just sold, we're selling a lot of really unique deals. We just sold a very large container deal that actually sold at, pretty close to a self-storage cap rate, and it was a 1,900 unit portable container deal. And a lot of it, some of it has to do with the allocation too, on how what the seller's plan is. If you're how much you're going to allocate to personal property in the containers and how much you allocate to the actual real estate. Because there's some depreciation benefits and also stuff that goes on there. But, for overall, they're widely accepted. But, the permitting can be a little dicey. I sold Brian a property in Colorado Springs that had some unpermitted units that we got over the hump with, but I had to twist his arm a couple times to get him over there.
Yeah, no, I get that. All right. And just one final question. How are you determining competition area and whether it's saturated? Is there a unit to people ratio that you guys are using? So I know we kind of always recently we were using about 7 square feet per person in the market, but I don't know what you guys are using today. Ben, you want to?
Yeah, I kind of shake my head because I personally think the 7 square feet per capita and then 1 in 10 households are antiquated kind of rules of thumb. We're seeing usership grow exponentially. I think it's more like 13 or 14% of households are using it, and maybe 10 to 15 square foot per capita. Just because, a lot of the millennials are using it at a much higher pace than maybe the previous generations. I will say whenever and so we look at it, but we're not hyper focused on it. I will say the higher square footage per capita typically leads to lower rental rates in the market. So,
right.
We have some sites that are 20, 25 square feet per capita within a 5-mile radius, and everybody's 95% full, but we're only achieving 90-cent rents. Where if there was, 7 square feet per capita in that same market, we'd probably be achieving $2 rents. So right. I think it has a bigger impact on rate per foot, not necessarily like an oversaturation of the market.
Yeah.
Ben, I thought that was an interesting comment that millennials are using it more highly. When I think we think about it, we probably had, 8 or 9 conferences where we'd traipse out some millennial and they'd get up on the stage and they'd tell us how the world's changed and we don't have a clue. And storage is going to heck in a handbasket. Nobody's going to use it. And remember those stories? And everybody,
it's crazy. I mean, they're using it more frequently than any other generation in history. I mean, I have several millennials in my office, and they all have storage. Some of them have multiple storage units, and it's just the product knowledge is so much greater in the younger generation than
the one thing I would add to Ben's comment is, not all markets are the same. So, if you're in Michigan,
in the market, quality of the competition is important too.
Right. But if you're in Michigan and you have in an area with big houses, big basements, you're not going to need 14 square feet per capita. But if you're in downtown Houston or, in Miami, Florida or Fort Lauderdale, where there are no basements and you have a tremendous amount of population growth and labor growth, you could handle 14, 15 square. So it depends on the market you're in.
Yeah, that's the best probably statement of that comment is every market's different. You really got to understand your market. Military markets have much higher usership. I mean, there's a lot of things that drive demand, but I do look at square footage per capita and stuff, but I don't put much weight in it. I try to find out how the actual property is doing within that submarket.
Right. So as we're right at the top of the hour here, so just I guess, Robert, any thoughts you want to leave us? What you're thinking about for this year? I mean, what are your thoughts, predictions, trends, anything you want to share?
We're just happy that we think the self-storage industry has woken up to the value of automation and is learning more about how to run their properties with a new operating model. Those are the solutions we built for that kind of customer. And so we're looking forward to 2022, 2023 and beyond. I don't think it's going to change. I think it's going to change for the better for us. And the good news is it sounds like from what Ben and Brian and you're all saying is you're also, your business is doing well as well. So it's not like, ours is doing great and yours isn't, but it sounds like that, both operator and vendor are enjoying the market.
Yeah.
And Brian, any final thoughts?
My final, I think it's a great time to be a seller. I think.
Sorry, Brian. That was funny.
But I think
Hold on. It's a great time to be a seller to Andover property.
Yeah.
or for Ben to sell the property. But I'm, in all kidding aside, if you're like, there's never been, cap rates have never compressed this much. If you're sitting on a property and you're a single owner, there's never been a better time to sell. There will be, look, you may have this year and next year, 22, 23, but once there will be a supply challenge issue that will come, and rental rates will drop again and valuations will drop because of it.
Yep.
So I'm just saying it's a great time to be a seller, just like any form of real estate, any house that's out there right now. It's just a great time to be a seller.
Every time we've sold, I've said, oh my God, we sold the best time ever. It can't get any better than this. Ben, how about you?
I mean, I love Brian's candor. He's absolutely right. I mean, I was going to, be a little bit more discreet and just say this might be as good as it gets for the next, couple of years. I mean, inevitably, we've all been through a couple cycles. There will be a time when valuations are not as high as they are today. Performance is not as good, but it is a great time to be a seller. But it's a great time to be an owner operator too. Your returns are growing exponentially. You do have to embrace technology. I think if you're not embracing technology today, you're leaving money on the table. And I think we have a short window here of in real estate, 2 or 3 years is a pretty short window. I think we have a short window of 2 or 3 years where this is as good as it gets for the time being for the self-storage space.
Yep. Hey, everything what goes up has to come down, and it'll come back up again. So, guys, this was great. Really appreciate your time, and more important, all your knowledge and information that you share with us, and really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, SBOA.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And just a quick wrap up. Funny you mentioned Flex, Ian. Congratulations to Kevin. He's the one who answered the question correctly about your combined years of experience.
There you
The
go.
correct answer was 76. He answered 79, so he was really close. And then one quick thing, we're going to pop up real quick. We will be back live in 2 weeks for another Self-Storage Unlocked. This one is operational efficiencies, best practices for your self-storage facility. I have Phil Murphy with me, Alana Ross, Rahim Amir, Mark Poole. So another great lineup of some industry experts coming here live with us. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a great rest of your Thursday and a great weekend. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.